Have you ever thought about a child being born today and just before you realize it, it's all grown up? This is Build a Child, Build a Nation with Amanda. We are always here to give to you contemporary topics that relate to children and how these developing children can also develop our nation. I remain your host, Amanda Adaji. I will be right back shortly to introduce our guest and the topic for this episode. Stay tuned. Welcome back. If you've just tuned in, this is Build a Child, Build a Nation. Today we are going to be talking about a very interesting topic. I personally love this topic. It's titled Growing Up Too Fast. What do you mean by growing up too fast? Our guest is going to really dissect this topic because we have seen children at very little age, or maybe we'll see them at 10, they are already looking at see if they are teenagers. All these things are things we are going to talk about and how it affects children's development emotionally, socially, psychologically. Our first guest is a professor of educational research, testing, measurement, and evaluation at Lagos State University, Ojo. And he's a widely traveled psychologist, and also he belongs to different institutional professional bodies in the person of Professor Ife Abodunrin.
Thank you very much.
Our second guest is an early childhood educator, pre and primary mathematics at the University of Ibadan, composer of hip-hop mathematics, was a visiting scholar and postdoctoral fellow in the US and South Africa, Dr. Akindele Ishola Salami. You're welcome to the show, sir.
Good day, Amanda. Good day, viewers.
Yes, back to our topic, growing up too fast. Now, we are not looking at growing up too fast in the terms of gigantism as an abnormality, but we are going to be looking at it in terms of maturity and how growing up too fast affects our children psychologically, socially, emotionally. Children go through a lot, but we adults, we really don't understand what they go through, but our experts will really analyze what growing up too fast is all about. And I will be starting with Professor Ife. Please, in your terms, what can you define growing up too fast?
Well, Amanda, growing up too fast is relative. It depends on how we perceive or view it. Okay. It may mean that a person does not grow as expected, or he is getting too big, too small, or he is learning too fast than the contemporaries. And that is why psychologists in particular talks about periods of equilibriums and disequilibrium, because there are expectations for different stages of development. There is an height, a range of height that a child of a year, 2 years, 3 years, and the like has to be. When a person surpasses this, and it is not because of a disease or an infection, then we may say is growing faster than is expected. And when we say it is too fast, then it is so high beyond what we would anticipate at that time.
Okay, sir. Dr. Salami, do you agree with that, or you have your own perspective of what growing too fast is all about?
Yeah, let me just stand on the shoulder of the giants, as we normally put it in academics, what Prof just said, but a little bit looking at it from different angles. When it comes to growing, raising children, there are two key issues we normally look at. We call it nature and nurture. Okay, from nature angle, we are talking about those natural things that will happen to a child at a particular stage in life. They are like milestones, okay? For instance now, I will be expecting a child of 5 months to be sitting up, and maybe if it is late, delayed a little bit, going to maybe 9 months. By 9 months, I will be expecting that child to even stand up, him or herself, okay? Now, when it comes to toddling, I will be looking at it 12 months, 15 months, the child should be staggering. So these are nature thing that at a particular at a particular stage, a child that is normal should do this. That is one. But when we look at the angle of nurture now, it is what's the environment. By environment, I mean the people around, the food we are exposing the child to and everything. How is it affecting the growing and the development of the child? So I doubt if there is any growing up too fast in the nature aspect. But when it comes to nurture aspect, yes, I can tell you there might be too fast here. So that is the way I will look at it, that, yes, like Prof said, we are going to be saying too fast if what we are exposing the child to at a particular stage is now making the child to develop extraordinary to what we are expecting.
Correct. That brings me to that question. You mentioned growing up too fast, nurture in terms of nurturing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, nurturing a child, how do you think that a parent would nurture his child to grow up too fast? I believe that there could be something they are doing that would actually make that child grow up too fast in terms of nurturing.
Yes, exactly. There is. And it is not limited to parents. This will bring me straight to the context of early childhood education. There is a concept we call hurrying. Hurrying. When we started making when we started to have the feeling that this child, the way I'm having my child, by age of 12, he should be graduate. By age of 15, he should be, already doing this, doing that. So at the early years, we will now put more on the child than the child needs. So we call that concept hurrying. It is common now among parents and schools. Okay, so that is from the angle I want to look at it. You know, the idea of, I know that the type of food we eat also now, the type of food our parents expose us to also could lead to, but I'm not interested in that seriously. I'm interested in this area of hurrying because of the consequences and the causes that we might need to quickly mention here. Maybe those our viewers, our listeners will now need to pick one or two things from that.
Sir, Prof, he mentioned nurturing, he mentioned what parents do. Like, I want to give an example of, will I call responsibility reversal? Can I call that as part of nurturing a child that could make a child grow fast? Responsibility reversal in the sense that taking a task that is not meant for a child and you put it upon that child. That's what's supposed to be an adult, and you're making a child do that without supervision. Do you think it's part of the nurturing that could make a child develop too fast?
Definitely it could be, but let us look at it from this perspective. The development in information and other communication technologies in the world today has exposed many to different kind of developments. Particularly, the world has become a global village, and we are technologically dependent. Almost anything we do now, from eating, drinking, going to school, and talking with one another, has made us to be technologically dependent. And most of our children are now exposed to some of these facilities. And this would definitely make them to be attempting to do or getting engaged in certain things which they are not supposed to by nature to be ready or prepared for. Take, for instance, the onset of menstruation. Initially, one would say when a girl goes to about 12, that's when this may come on. But these days, so many girls now start at around 9 or 10. Consider girls exposed to so many kinds of pictures, even pornography. What would they be doing? So some of these things has made us to be very careful, and parental control, even on these gadgets, are rather abandoned by parents. Even when we give computers in the schools, do we control the use of it effectively? The drama these children watch, no one is concerned about the age limitations. The talks they listen to around the corners, nobody. Recently, we know what happened with some pupils taken abroad for some excursion. We have to be very careful. Parents need to be more careful. I wouldn't say they've been careless or reckless, but we've exposed our children to more than what they can take at their stages.
So how can parents detect that their child is growing up too fast?
Definitely, parents know at least how the older sibling are developed. If you have a girl and she took on growing the breast at the onset of menarche, maybe around 11, 12 and the like, and there's another one who started growing it by 8, you should start asking questions. Since she's not abnormal, then you should start asking questions. Then if you notice that girls start making up at around 8, 9, 10, being clear about the kind of dress she wears out, and start thinking more of hairdo, her earrings, that's beyond her. Then you start noticing that something is wrong. Or the kind of people she moves and relates with. Another thing may be whether she now wants the father, let's say a girl child, not wanting to dress up when the father is around. Then you should be noticing that there are changes coming on this child too early than is expected. Such behavior are expected well above the age of menarche, that is onset of menstruation. But then, when it comes too early, then you know something is getting wrong. This girl is growing too fast. Then you need to monitor her more peculiarly.
Do you have anything to say to add to this?
Yes, in addition to what Prof said, but again, in a very little bit different perspective, is that most times I think the parents, the adults around the child, the parents and the teacher, are the one pushing too fast. They are the one pushing too fast. For instance, when you have a child in preschool, the curriculum of preschool, for instance, stated that at age 5, that child should be able to count rhythmically from 1 to 20, rhythmically from 1 to 50, but recognize and write 1 to 20. But go back to our schools these days. At age 5, they will count to 500, if not 1 million. Yeah. And they will write 1 to 100. So you are the one pushing them too fast. And the implication is serious. In addition to what Prof said, the parent is pushing too fast. The school, poor early childhood education practices, is adding to it. Those that are supposed to be correcting the parent will dance to the tune because they want to have more pupils in their school. They will add to it. Now, the government we have, who is not monitoring what they said at this level, this is what our children should be doing. They are not monitoring it. They leave them alone to be doing whatever they like. So these are the way the society, everybody around them, pushing them too fast. Do you know the implication? There is a guy, I think the man is in one of the universities in the United States. His name is David Erkind. Did one research for his PhD work. He studied children that were too pushed. They were hurrying in their early childhood education, and I studied for them for some years to see what will happen to them. Exactly what Prof was mentioning now were happening to them. In fact, they lost their childhood play. They were unable to play because you put them from school to sitting room, give them Indomie, Then give them assignments. They will be doing the assignment until they sleep. Immediately, early in the morning, around 5 o'clock, you pick them again in the car. But in the school, the teacher starts his own like that. They lost their childhood stage. They lost everything. Then a lot of sicknesses and everything setting. So we are the one pushing them too fast. Like I said, if we allow nature to play its course, maybe the way Prof described it now, we will still see 12 years before you menstruate, you become to 12 years. Maybe it will still be happening. But what we are pushing them through.
We'll come back later to take more questions while we take this little commercial. So don't change that dial. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. If you just tuned in, this is Build a Child, Build a Nation with Amanda. We have been here discussing on a very important topic, growing up too fast, with our seasoned professors in the house, and we were talking about a very, very interesting topic, which Dr. Salami here just finished, and I still want to ask him one more question from where we stopped, and he said, we are the ones pushing our children too fast. Now, my question is, since we are pushing our children too fast, does it have anything to do with their brain development being configured to, the matured aspect of life? Because that is the way I am looking at it, or except I am not getting what you just finished explaining.
Thank you, Amanda. Let me ask a rhetorical question.
Okay.
When your age 4, 5, 6 in primary 1 and all those children come back from school, of all the academic school activities done, when you check their reports, what do you see? You are going to see that 95% of all the activities is on academics. English language, mathematics, science. In fact, you are going to see people reading topology now in preschool. All those things are what you are going to see. Like there are 4 things to be developed in these children. The academic is just one. What about their social lives? How many? There was a scenario I created in one of the schools of my child. I went there and said, ma, thank you for at the end of the term. Now I can see my baby girl is scoring 99, fine. Ma, how about social life of this girl? Because at home, she's not talking. Then how about physical activities? At age 5, they should be able to use their hands to do something. The response was, hey, we do observe them. She's a good girl. When we observe them like this in class, we will know that they are socially developing. And I asked again, because this is my area of specialization.
Exactly.
I now said, listen, you measure intellectual of my child empirically. When it comes to social, emotional, and physical, you observe. That's what we do. And there's nowhere you can show me any evidence of anything. That is exactly what we do. It affects. According to Elkind, I was mentioning the other time, he said when we rush our children too much, we will only be developing one aspect of the 4 of their developmental domains. It's only one we're going to concentrate on. The rest, their social life will be messed. Their emotional life, they will be there. Nothing will be developed physically, too. How many of our school developing, is it athletes, is it footballers, how many of our school do you see, producing any one of them? No, because they are all neglected.
When a child moves too fast, as has been stated by Dr. Salami, he loses other areas of development, particularly emotional attachment. He loses social integration with the society. He becomes aloof. It's like someone who has lost the way. Let's look at the scenario in the tertiary institutions, in particular in Nigeria. You notice that at times, the borderline says that someone who is below 16 years of age should not be in the university. But if you check that keenly, you'll see otherwise. And what happens to these young ones? Some of them do not even know the essence of being in a university. And it becomes a situation where they become so free and uncautioned, what happens in the end? They lose focus, they no longer concentrate, they no longer study well. All they do is wanting to take gain on social interactions, particularly with the opposite sex, and failure sets in. It's because they are coming in to a place at a time when they are not prepared for it. Thorndike, in his studies, specified that there are basic laws of learning. Readiness is important. Readiness would imply that that person has grown in all areas, prepared for the task at hand. But if one is not grown to that level, then there will be a problem. But much of the criteria we'll look at for bringing in people either to the primary school or whatever is the cognitive ability. Will he be able to sustain the strain that it requires to be in school? Will he be able to endure the problems that may be encountered? Is he physically strong enough for the duress? All these are so important. And so if we rush people, like in many of our private schools, pupils don't go to primary 6 anymore. They move from primary 5 to the secondary school. And they now mix. There is a whole year gap in terms of age between them and those who they will meet in the secondary school. That developmental phase that they've chalked up together now will create a problem of imbalance. And so there is always problem. And there's always the need for checks and balances, not only to be stated in paper, in print, but to be monitored appropriately by the relative authority, like the ministries of education. We are running basic systems which specifies the age that each child should be at different stages. That should be emphasized and monitored cleverly. Thank you.
That brings me to another question. Since one domain is being developed in our system, don't you think our country, don't you think we are hitting a rock? Because they are going to be the future leaders. And if we succeed in just developing a particular domain, how can they be effective leaders?
The future is bleak. Because the foundation upon which any development would stand on is the education of children. But if we are not handling that properly, then we are in a mess. We are saying here that even early childhood education is not focused upon by any state government, not even the federal government. We leave everything entirely into the hands of individuals, many of whom are not trained, but sees establishment of schools as an economic venture rather than a social venture, without basic philosophy. I'm not saying they are not good in any area, but they are specialized areas which only specialized hands may be required to handle. We must focus on this. In Britain, in the US, I'm certain, a child cannot be taken to a school without considering even the birth certificate. We must know that he's ready. We must know that he's prepared. And you know, we are also talking about inclusive education. If we cannot manage people when we are specializing and at least giving them groupings, how would we be able to manage it when it becomes inclusive? And that's what the world is getting onto. And I must dare say that one of our major problems is jumping into globalization when we are not globalized. We are not yet at the level which other nations are. Yet we want to move as other nations move. I remember a case of former leaders in India, like Nehru and Gandhi. They said it and emphasized it and made sure it was taken that if India will not be able to make its own clothes, let all Indians go naked. And that's why they are developed today. They wouldn't use what they cannot make. In China, in Japan, you see children making up these handsets we are selling at thousands of naira now. You tell them the brand you want, they'll bring it together in parts, they assemble it, and you take it away. But can our engineers do so much? If we import only sellotapes, then where are we going? We rush. But when we get to the point when we should make meaning, we can no longer act. Because we are not making preparations. The whole essence of psychology is also to be able to make predictions for what would be expected of individuals so that we can make preparations ready. But we don't depend on research. We take education as we build our roads. Marshy areas or whatever, we just allow anyone to pour sand there without considering the texture. We do not do research. We must do some research. We must measure things. We must test our plans before we now bring in new ideas. And indeed, in Nigeria, almost every change of government comes with a new philosophy of education. We start from there. Thank you.
Our future is bleak, and we have our own children who are in this generation who would lead us when we are out of the scene. But we will come back later for more questions as we go on this commercial bit. Don't change that dial. Just stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Build a Child, Build a Nation. We are still on the same topic, growing up too fast. But we're handling a question, and that question has spawned to another question. So if you are just tuned in, this is Build a Child, Build a Nation with Amanda. And the question is to Dr. Salami. And I said, we've been talking about we making them grow too fast. Now, how are you going to, or what are you going to tell schools, since we know that the private individuals are majorly the ones in charge of this particular sector of education? What are you going to tell them, since we know we're not getting it right? How are they going to checkmate this growing up too fast situation to help our children?
Okay. What I would advise parents as well as the schools is just one thing. That's the only way I think we can get this issue corrected in the mind, in the mind of our people, and it is to expose the consequences of hurrying that we are practicing. Prof mentioned one. I will make a specific example of that. In the university, myself and one of my senior colleagues in Faculty of Art did a research recently. What did we do? We looked for children in the remote schools that are not exposed to early preschool education. We were able to get 120 across Southwest. We will now study them in the 4 developmental domains against those ones that were exposed to preschool education. The results will shock you. We discovered that those ones exposed to preschool education, intellectually, they have significant better results than the one in the remote schools. But in the remaining 3 areas, social, emotional, and physical, those ones in the village that were not exposed to preschool education were better. They have higher, we measure their social, their cultural practices, their emotional development, and their physical. They were better. That's number one. Number two, the research I was talking about, it was published 2014 abroad, also studied this hurrying versus health of the child. Can you believe that hurrying was traced to bedwetting? Hurrying was traced to suicide attempts. Hurrying was traced to stress in children. And at the end of the day, another research from Nigeria here, which I also took part, also showed that when you hurry them in preschool, you hurry them in lower primary classes, when they get to primary 4, exactly primary 4, girl child, started dropping in science and mathematics courses. And majority of them will not be able to cope with university or high post-secondary education as expected. So these are the issues. Then the question will now be, why would you want to hurry your child if it could lead to this type of things? Up to today, some of us will still be, this stress is too much. I wish I'm a baby, that I can just be playing around, I'm not going to school, I'm not doing anything. We are still feeling like that these days. So why are you not allowing those children to enjoy their own childhood stage of life?
But do you know that some parents actually take, pleasure, or they take joy in making their child, maybe their child, my child is in primary 6, my child is in secondary school, and my child is just 9 years old.
That is why I said, let us expose them to the danger ahead. So if they know that, this child I'm so proud of today, my child is age 3, he can read Cambridge Dictionary. When it comes to higher education, be careful. He or she might not be able to cope with academic rigor there. And again, let the person tell us about the social, emotional, physical life of that child. Then we are going to realize that I presented a paper in 2014 at a summit at Abuja. I was able to show that gathering that all this killing, corruption, militancy and everything can be traced to the type of education we give to our children. When I was growing up, whenever I see a blood in human, and not only me, all of us then, when somebody, maybe we're playing and there's a cut, we're no more the same that day. If I read a quarry. But today, our children will see even dead body and they will bring out a phone and be taking pictures. There's no more fear. Where do you think that is coming from? Then there's no more empathy. People don't feel for you when you are dying. Who cares? Where do you think that is coming from? It is from this horrid thing. Because if, as long as it's always first in his class. It's always first. Please, let them realize it's always first. It's only talking about intellectual. Social, your child might not be there. Emotional, your child might not be there. Physical might not be there. That is just what I think we should do, both to the schools and to the parents, so as they will see that it is more, raising children is more than that. They should stop raising kids. Tell our parents, maybe you will be able to tell them, that they should stop raising kids in Africa. We raise children, people that have feelings.
That's very wonderful. We should stop raising kids. We should raise children. This is Africa and this is Nigeria.
This is Nigeria, yeah.
So we are very peculiar. So then this question, he said something about children playing and all that. But I discovered that there are some children who, they tend to grow up big, they are already, maybe their siblings or their peers of the same age, they look bigger than them. So don't you think it could have some kind of psychological effects in them when they are in the same classroom and you notice that you are the biggest of them all, the child will feel, don't you think the child psychologically will feel, I'm not supposed to be here? And most times, the school, once they see things like that, they take the child from that class to an upper class, to a higher class where the child fits in terms of body stature. Do you think that is the best?
That is in error. It is not only the size, not the soma alone, the cognitive development, the psychomotor development, the psychological, all areas of emotions comes into play. It is not just the size that means moving fast or whatever, but it will even be an error for a teacher to now use size to place a child in another class. Because what about the cognitive development, the emotional development, the social development of those who will be encountering there? Is he prepared to meet with them? Is he as experienced as they are? And that's what's causing much problem that we have now. However, if a child is older than the contemporaries is in the class with, there is tendency that he becomes a bully. Though there are different forms of bullying these days, there's cyber bullying too, and that's even a crime. But we see people indulging in it, and they go away with it. Most of these have to be checked. However, where I want us to look into about drafting people on is training people to be able to mitigate the problem. You remember around 1972, or let us say 71, 72, thereabout, there was a change in the number of years children spend in the primary school. It was 7 years before, then it turned to 6 years. On our own now, we don't allow children to use 6 years anymore. It will be 5 years. And some will even enter that primary school at age 4 or 3. Now, where are we getting to? Whereas in some countries that are developed, they will be mindful of when in the year a child was born. A child that is born earlier in the year will not mix into the same class with one born later in the year because there is a gap in development. It takes about 3 months between crawling and standing up. That's still meaningful in terms of relating with the other person. It takes just about that 3 months also between trying to crawl and moving, locomoting about, and being able to speak coherent language. That makes so important meaning to development too. But when you mix all these people together, it becomes a problem. And so we need people who are specialized in handling people at the different stages. And I don't know who advised this country to stop the grade 2 certificate, the grade 1 certificate. And now they are trying to phase out even NCE. And everyone who has deficiency that makes it difficult to go to the university straight will still waggle their way, either through a private university who may condone some other things, and go to the university when ill-prepared. We have to be very careful. And we have to make sure that people who are trained and specialized in certain areas, it is not a matter of the degree you have, but how specialized you are. You can't use a carpenter to build a house. He only has to cover it. So we need to return all these things. Even in Britain that we talk about, these grades still remain. Why are we phasing out things? Suddenly we'll even change some good moving institutions into universities, forgetting that certain institutions play specific roles. We need to think deep. And besides, why would everyone have to be depending on the university? And that's why even technical institutions are almost phased out and all agitating to be university. Then that means there won't be any room for those who cannot make the criteria. And that's why we have all ills in our society. We need to check all this. And I'm waiting for a minister of education who will be right-thinking enough to address these matters properly. Not bringing engineers or medical doctors to come and help us to do that. All these problems, precocious children or whatever, it's not all the time that you treat that in the hospital. Teachers can manage some things if they are properly trained. Thank you.
Dr. Salami, just this last statement, he said teachers can manage some certain things. Now, I am a disciple of parents may not be responsible for all the trainings, because if we have specialists in institutions, they are also stakeholders. So if we discover that a child is growing up too fast, there are some things the parents may not even know about. But it now rests in the bosom of the teacher to identify these things. So are you in the thought that the parents should be solely responsible for all the monitoring of these children, or the school too has its own part to play. So if a child who is growing up too fast is not monitored and handled well, that means the blame shouldn't just be on the parents alone. The school should also take part of it. Do you agree with me?
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you because I believe the scenario you painted before, a child that is bigger in size than his peers in the same class, maybe it's a problem. Such situation, if that is, we are looking at going too fast in that angle, there are two reasons to it. The first one could be heredity. We need to look at the size of the parents and the size of the child. If we discover that this child is coming from huge parents, there's nothing we can do about it. And we don't necessarily need to move the child around. Let the child continue. That is the gene in him or her. But the second one is eating junks. Eating junks. Some parents.
That's another topic, because
exactly.
Obesity in children is
language.
A different topic. It's even becoming very rampant now.
So if a teacher, it is left for a teacher of such a child to say, you are so big, at age 4 you are this big, okay? When the parent, can we see your parents, and the parents come and you discover that the parents are not so big. So such teacher will start inquiring, so how is this child living at home? The teacher might now discover that this thing going on is not heredity, it's because of obesity. And do you know what causes obesity? It's not just the food. If you allow children to eat continuously and you don't allow them to exercise, they don't have time to burn out the energy and the sugar in them. They started growing too big. Okay, that is one of the reasons Americans are dealing seriously with their eateries now. Okay, so if you discover that, then it is rest on the shoulder of the teacher to invite the parents, educate them. I have seen schools where there are timetables. This week, on Monday, these children must see this. They must see this. Because they have seen that it is only Indomie. It is only these noodle foods every morning, evening, afternoon, because they don't have time. So the teachers are also there to assist. And if the teacher discovers that he's getting, despite these varieties, trying to balance the food, is not getting it right, then they will refer. They have the capacity to do the referral. For the child, please, we need to see doctors. Something is not right with the growing rate of this child. So I agree with you, the teachers can also help out.
So in conclusion, Prof. Ife, what do you think we should be telling stakeholders now? Stakeholders, that includes the parents, the teachers, the government. What should be done? Because since our children are growing up too fast, we are seeing lots of things happening in the society. You see children engaging in different kind of things they shouldn't. You see lots of things happening in the classrooms. So what should we tell the stakeholders?
The bottom line is the government. The owners of the whole thing, where everything started, is poverty angle. If the society is poor, then everyone would have to start to be working. I do not see any reason why in today's Nigeria or in any other countries of the world, women who are nursing mothers should not be considered to be performing economic activity. And that means they'll be given some stipends to take care of themselves and their children. In Nigeria, we say we are trying to ease the problem of COVID-19, and we start spreading money without gauge. These monies could have been better spent on women. Because let's look at it. Every woman in Nigeria today is under stress. They need to cater for the home, for the children, for even the husband at times, and herself. Where would all this be? She has to move out. You see some even harrowing the land with a baby at the back. What's going on? I think we should delimit the desire of women to take paid jobs outside the home when they are nursing their children. Rather, to compensate, the due task, the due amount should be paid them. For those who have got job, more lengthy periods should be given them as leave to take care of their children. Some countries will say until you finish child rearing, you're entitled to certain things. In the country like the United States of America, there's welfare package for each child that the parents are entitled to. We've got to start thinking of this. If we think of all this, if we are taking our schools seriously, we won't be hearing of corruption that this fellow has taken billions and thousands all the time, because there won't be sufficient money left without doing a certain responsibility. To the parents, I would say, they focus more on their children and stop being selfish. A parent may be working at Ilorin and another in Lagos just to make money. In the end, you realize even what you are making is not sufficient to keep you. So why not stay together and make these children happy? Because if you are not together to make these children happy, their emotionality is tortured already. And you can't find such people helping the nation or themselves later. Imagine a country like Ukraine, where some men will take their children and their wives out of the country and will still return to the country that is war-torn in order to defend their country. It's because they have patriotic thoughts. They know the country has served them, and it is their time and turn to serve the country. If there is a little bomb in any village in Nigeria, all the villagers will run to another country. And I'm sorry for Africa. I don't know which country can take us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Your words, please, sir. Dr.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Prof. I love standing on the shoulder of the giants. In South Africa here, African countries, when a woman, even in the remote village, they call it, I will remember now. They don't call it village, they said they go to, okay. If a baby is born in the village down there, location, if they have a baby in the location, the day the baby is born, it's registered. The end of that month, the mother started collecting stipend. They call it stipend, but it is enough to enroll the child into public primary school, which is far better than any private you could say around. Wow. So they will register. So somebody might be thinking, what's Professor saying? A country should be giving every woman. Yes, it is doable. South African is doing it. That is the example number one. So our government, maybe if they want to be serious, there is an assignment, and the money we are wasting, there is a place to spend it. That's one. Number two, to the parent. You know, we have two things we are looking at: hurrying of our children, then this going too fast. To going too fast, I would just beg them that we should go back to eating our local foods. It won't develop obesity in anybody. And please, they should allow our children to have time for self-initiated play, active play, not playing game. Video game. Not video. I'm not talking of video game. I'm not talking of a game you'll be playing on a sofa. No. Phone. They will run around, play with friends in the community. They should allow it. It will take care of obesity. But if your child is grown naturally and you know, Baba Elujo, please, there's nothing wrong in it. Nothing at all is wrong in that one. So that is the teachers. They should help us. I know, sir, that there are still some schools that are still employing these early childhood educators that were well trained. They should allow them to practice. Don't shut the door of your school from parents. Have time to invite the parents, not because you want to collect money, but because you want to give them, professional advice concerning how to raise their child. If we practice all this, we have some knowledge in that area and we won't have issues.
Wow, it has been an exciting moment talking about growing up too fast with our children. We are coming to the end of the show. I thank my professors in the house, Dr. Salami, Professor Ife. They have been so wonderful. They have contributed greatly to this topic. And I also want to thank my crew. They have been so wonderful and patient too. And I also want to send a little nudge to some schools and stakeholders who are involved in anything that has to do with our children, because they are our future. Schools should please handle our children that are growing up too fast. They should learn how to deal with them. Government should understand that these children are our pride, they are our future, so they should endeavor to put more and in more what they need to do to make these children the best for our future, because very soon we will be leaving the scene and they will be taking charge of our lives. So in that case, I will advise all stakeholders that every hand should be on deck to give these children the best they can. Parents, acknowledge your children, love them, listen to them. Sometimes they want to talk to you. They want to say, Mommy, this is what I want. Daddy, this is how I want things to be done. Just hear them out. And you can also give them advice when you see that what they want is actually going beyond what you should do. So in that case, I will say bye. I still remain your host, Amanda Adaji. See you next time.